Hi guys, I'm Glennet and I'm making free videos that teach quality engineering step by step so that you can build real skills without paying any expensive course. So we've covered the quality systems elements and its documentation. Now we cover the actual standards that codify all of it globally, and the award program that recognizes doing it is best. So here's the roadmap. So firstly, a short history of how the national standards evolved into international ones and how ISO itself came to exist. Second, the ISO family, the three related standards and the seven quality management principles that are built on. Third, we go deep on each three standards individually, the ISO 9000 2015's vocabulary concepts, ISO 9001 2015 requirements and its full 10 clause structure, and ISO 9004 2018's improvement based on the guidance and its three adoption paths. And fourth, the other industry specific standards, the automotive, the telecom, and biomedical. And finally, the Malcolm Baldrige National Award, its history and the seven criteria it actually judges against. So let's start with the history because it explains why the international standards exist at all. The concept of the national standards spelling out the requirements of how goods and services were to be produced grew hand in hand with the industrialization of national economies. One of the first national standards was a boiler standard issued late in the 19th century by the American Society of Mechanical Engineers. So, a genuinely practical safety concerns since a poorly made boiler could kill people. So, over time, different nations adopted standards that, so while entirely appropriate to their own national needs, it ended up in a conflict of standards of other nations. So, that created a real business problem. A company would have either customized its operation to national standardize, so which could be a very inefficient and expensive, or simply forfeit the opportunity to do business in some countries altogether. So neither option was great. So these conflicts between national standards naturally gave rise to the concept of international standards. So around the beginning of the 20th century, as electricity became a powerful force in different countries, an international standards organization, the International Electrotechnical Institute, was established. So this organization provided a precedent for the later established for the International Organization for Standardization, familiarly known as the ISO. So then, in 1970s and 1980s, as global commerce became a matter of interest to more than 100 countries and thousands of companies, a major cooperative effort of international quality professional led to directly to the ISO 9000 family of standards. So it's worth knowing exactly what ISO is. So, an independent, a non-governmental international organization based in Geneva, Switzerland. So, with a membership over 160 national standard bodies. One honest note before we dive into the standards themselves, there has been some critique of the ISO 9000 series effectiveness and of its industry-specific standards generally because of their focus on formal documentation of the quality system. Montgomery in 2013 argues that with the primary focus on documentation, not enough attention is always paid to quality improvement, and the ISO certification does not guarantee quality procedures that are actually produced. So that's usually a fair critique worth keeping in mind as we go through the details. So certification proves a documented system exists and it is followed, not the output that is automatically excellent. So here's something genuinely confusing that trips people up. So let's clear that immediately. So ISO 9000 2015 refers to both family of three related standards and one specific standard within that family. The purpose of the family is quoted directly to assist organization all types of sizes to implement and operate effective quality management systems. The family consists of three standards: quality management vocabulary, requirements, and guidelines for performance. So ISO 9000 quality management systems are the fundamentals and vocabulary. It provides the fundamental concepts, principles, and terminology of quality management systems. So it's shared language everyone uses. So ISO 9001 management quality system, it, the requirements specifies the needed requirements for organization to provide products that aim to enhance customer satisfaction. So this is one of the organization that get certified against. And ISO 9004, the quality management or the quality of an organization. It is the guidance to achieving sustained success. It suggests ways to improve organizational performance and customer satisfactions beyond the requirements of ISO 9001. So this is one guidance, not the certifiable requirement. So we're not going to spend a real time on each of these three individual later for this video, but it's worth remembering that this naming um, and difference. So when someone says ISO 9000, it's a casual conversation. You just have to figure out from the context whether they mean the full three document family or specifically the vocabulary document. So many people, in fact, inadvertently call the requirements ISO 9000 when they actually mean 9001. So we'll flag that specific mix, later on. So the entire ISO 9000 family is built on the seven quality management principles, and these are genuinely worth knowing since they are the philosophical foundation underneath every specific requirement that we'll cover. So one is the customer focus. Understand the customer needs, meet their requirements, and strive to exceed their expectations. Note that the progression from understanding to meeting to exceeding. So two is the leadership. Establish unity of purpose and direction. So create a conditions in which people are genuinely engaged in achieving the organization's quality objectives. So three is the engagement of people. Recognize, empower, and enhance competence to help people at all levels feel a sense of ownership and involvement in achieving quality objectives. So this connects directly back to our earlier discussion of the genuine versus lip service empowerment. Four is the process approach. Understand how interrelated process combines and affect each other in order to optimize as a whole. So not optimizing any process in isolation. Five is the continual improvement. Maintain the ideal of continually improving of all aspects of the organization, both to maintain the current performance and to react the internal and external conditions and to create new opportunities. So again, echoing the no finish line messaging from our barriers to quality discussion. Six is the evidence-based decision making. Facts, evidence, and data analysis provide better objectivity and confidence in decision making. So rather than opinion or hierarchy alone. So and seven, the relationship management, all relevant interested parties influence performance, including suppliers, customers, providers, employees, investors, and society as a whole. And then the seventh principle is generally broad, so it explicitly includes society as a whole, so not just parties during transacting within the organization. So it's worth understanding that ISO standard is not static and frozen in time. So it is reviewed every 5 years and revised if needed. So these revisions happen to adapt to changing environments, to reflect increasingly complex organization in a global market, and to ensure new standards reflect the changing needs of all interested parties. The edition history for ISO 9001 specifically are shown in the screen traces a clear lineage. The ISO 9001 1994 replaced by ISO 9001 2000, replaced by ISO 9001 2008, and replaced by the current, the ISO 9001 2015. It is published in September 2015. So each replacement represents a 5 year or so review cycle, catching up with how organization and global premieres had actually changed since the prior editions. So for anyone who wants to deep dive specifically into what changed between 2008 2015 editions, so this chapter points at specific resource constraint. So let's see, there's also an author called Cianfrani and West 2015 book, like the ISO 2015 explained, like we're going to cover the major changes ourselves in the next couple of slides. So but the but this is the dedicated reference if you want a full data that we can cover. So let's go deep to ISO 9000 2015 itself, since it's generally the language of the foundation for the entire worldwide system of the development, implementation, auditing, and registration of ISO 9001 2015. So it processes a well-defined quality management system based on a framework that integrates established fundamental concepts, principles, processes, and resources related to quality in order to help organizations realize their objectives. So its aim is to increase an organization awareness of its duties and commitment in fulfilling the needs and expectation of its customer and interested parties and in achieving satisfaction with its products and services. The standard contains definition built on many person years of research and consultation. In total, 146 concepts and their associated terms are organized in conceptual order across 14 categories: person or people, organization, activity, process, systems, requirement, result, data, information, what else? Uh, Customer characteristic, determination, actions, and audit. So there's a generally precise distinction the standard draws between a concept and a term. A concept is a unit of knowledge created by a unique combination of the characteristic, while a term is a verbal designation of that concept as it applies to a specific field of study. The concept is the idea itself. The term is a specific word that we've agreed to call it. So two criteria apply to all of the ISO 9000 terms and definitions. So avoid technical language in technical descriptions and employ a coherent and harmonized vocabulary that understood by all the actual potential users. So here's why it matters so much, because the standards are translated into many different languages, and it's critical that all users have the same understanding of what terms actually mean. So this goal has been accomplished by having representative for more than 100 countries involved in polishing the definitions. So this topic gives a generally memorable example of why this language-specific polishing matters. The term interested party, in English, a more common everyday term, would be simply stakeholder. However, in some languages, a literal translation of stakeholder comes out from us someone holding a stick, obviously not intended meaning at all. So many conflicts and ambiguities, exactly like this one, have been carefully resolved over the years. So which is precisely why the standard uses more universally translatable phrase interested party instead. So now let's focus on the ISO 9001:2015 itself. The document organization actually gets certified against. So this is the set of requirements that organization must satisfy to achieve a ISO 9000 registration or certification. So such registration is required in some industries and highly regarded in many others, and over 140 countries have ISO 9000 registration programs. So it's a generally global reach. So here's a common mixed up worth repeating. Many people, refer this key requirement document as ISO 9000 2015. Remember the distinction precisely. ISO 9000 refers to the family of three documents: 9000, 9001, and 9004. ISO 9001 refers specifically to the requirements document. And the important fact is ISO 9000 2015 is the only standard in the entire 9000 family that allows the organization to be certified. Neither 9000 nor 9004 offer certification. Only 9000 does. So when a new edition of the standard is published, an organization wishing to remain ISO 9000 certified must update its QMS so that it confirms the new standard, and then must seek certification to that new standard. So there's a grace period built in specifically to give organization to make all the necessary changes. So certification does not expire overnight the moment the new edition is released. So now let's get into the what actual 2015 edition compared to its predecessor, because the changes were generally significant. So it's not just a cosmetic design. So the 2015 brought several major changes compared with the previous editions, and let's cover them properly. So first, and the most structurally significant, the standard structure was changed so it follows the same overall structure as the ISO management system standards, called the high level structure. This restructuring was implemented specifically to make it easier for the organization to unify multiple management system. So if a company is certified to ISO 9000 for quality and ISO 4001 for environmental management, for example, a shared structure makes integrating those two systems far less redundant. In addition to making the standard more user-friendly for service and knowledge-based organization, not just manufacturers, the other changes emphasize 8 things, like shown in the screen, like the leadership management, organizational risk and opportunities addressed in structured manner, supply chain management addressed more effective, understanding the organization context, captured in the phrase one size does not fit at all, a process-oriented approach, preventive action along with the risk identification and mitigation, seeking opportunities for improvement, and managing processes in a planned manner. One more genuinely important clarification from this chapter is there is not a requirement for organization to apply the structure and terminology of the standard of its own QMS documentation. These standards serve as the list of requirements, not a model of documenting the organization and policies and objectives. So you have to meet the requirements, but you don't have to structure your internal documents to mirror the standard's own clause numbering. The 2015 edition also updated various terminology from previous edition. For example, products became products and services, and purchased product became, external provided products and services. So these changes were made specifically to improve alignment with other management system standards, reinforcing that the same high-level structure goal. So the ISO 9001:2015 has 10 major parts or clauses, and it's worth knowing the full structure, since it is generally how the standard itself is organized. The first three general clauses, clause 1, uh, scope, tells you what organization, or location, processes, and products are covered by a given implementation. Clause 2 is the normative references, cites other standards that simply being listed became part of the ISO 1001 provision. And the clause 3, terms and definition, does not redefine anything itself. It's just a references ISO 9000, which contains all the definitions applicable to ISO 9001, tying directly back to the vocabulary documented we just covered. The remaining 7 are technical issues clauses. So number 4 through 10, and I'll name all the 7 here, with the detailed subclauses coming to the next two side clauses slides. Like clause 4 is the context of the organization, clause 5 is leadership, clause 6 is planning, clause 7 is support, clause 8 is operation, clause 9 is performance evaluation, and clause 10 is the improvement. So this structure is exactly the high level structure we discussed the moment ago. The same 7 technical clause title appears across the other ISO management system standards too. So which is precisely what makes integrating multiple certification so much more manageable than it used to be. So let's go deeper from these 7 clauses. So let's go to the first 3 technical clauses, the sub-clauses, in detail, since they are the ones actually tested and audited against. So clause 4 is the context of the organization. It breaks into 4 sub-clauses. The 4.1, the understanding the organization and its context. 4.2 is the understanding the needs and expectation of interested parties. 4.3 is the scope of the quality management system, and 4.4 the quality management system and its processes. So this whole clause is essentially about knowing where your organization sits before you design anything. So you cannot build an effective QMS without first understanding your own context. Clause 5, leadership. It breaks into 3 clauses. 5.1, the leadership and commitment. 5.2 is the policy. And 5.3 is the organizational roles, responsibilities, and authority. So this directly echoes everything that we covered in our leadership sessions. The standard does not assume leadership exists. It explicitly requires documented commitment, policy, and clear role assignment. Clause 6 is the planning, breaks into 3 sub-clauses that map exactly onto the 3 planning goals we've covered in our last video. 6.1, actions to addresses the risk and opportunities. 6.2 is the quality objectives and planning to achieve them. And 6.3 is the planning of changes. So notice that it is generally the same 3-part planning structure that we've already unpacked in depth. So now we formally numbered as clause into the actual standard. Continuing with the remaining technical clauses, clause 7 is the support. It has 5 clauses. 7.1 is the resources, 7.2 is the competence, 7.3 is the awareness, 7.4 is the communication, and 7.5 is the documentation, documented information. So that last one connects directly back to the entire documentation video that we just covered. It's literally its own numbered clauses in the standard. Clause 8 is operation, is the largest technical clause with 7 subclauses. 8.1 is the operational planning and control. 8.2 is the requirements for the products and services. 8.3 is the development of products and services. 8.4 is the control of externally provided processes, products, and services. 8.5 is the production and service provisions. 8.6 is the release of the products and services. And 8.7 is the control of non-conforming outputs. So this clause covers the actual day-to-day running of the operation, from the planning through the catching of non-conforming output. It's the biggest clause because it covers the most ground operationally. Clause 9 is the performance evaluation, and it has three subclauses. 9.1 is the monitoring, measurement, analysis, and evaluation. 9.2 is the internal audit, and 9.3 is the management review, and clause 10 is the improvement. So it closes out the standard of three subclauses. That 10.1 is general, 10.2 is the non-conformity and corrective actions, and 10.3 is the continual improvement. Step back and notice the overall arc across the seven technical clauses. Context and leadership set the foundation. Planning defines the direction. Support and operation actually execute the work. Performance evaluation checks how it is going. And improvement closes the loop by fixing what's broken and continuing to get better. So essentially, it is a plan, do, check, act cycle that is expressed in a formal standard. So let's cover the ISO 9004 2018 properly because it's generally different in character from ISO 9001 and the difference matters. Whereas ISO 9001 is a compliance base and ISO 9004 is improvement based. So all the great ideas in 9004 are guidelines, not our requirements. So there is a real controversy in the field of quality on the usefulness of ISO 9004, and it is not widely, adopted. It's also worth knowing honestly rather than presenting it universally embraced. The developers of the ISO family made ISO 9001 and ISO 9004 completely compatible in structure. So, which we'll see a pace of directly in the three adoption paths on the next slide. ISO 9004 2018 replaces the ISO 9004 2009, and the major changes in the newer edition are alignment with the concept of terminology of ISO 9000 2015 and ISO 9001 2015, a focus on the concept of quality of an organization and a focus of concept of identity of an organization. Like ISO 9001, ISO 9004 2018 relies on the same seven principles of quality management that we covered earlier. But here's the key functional difference. Whereas compliance with 9001 raises the issue of corrective action, fixing what's broken and meet the requirement. The 9004 guidelines suggest how and where to go further in improving the performance beyond simply being a compliant. So ISO 9004 also contains something ISO 9001 doesn't have. One annex in the form of self-assessment tool that identifies a specific process for self-improvement. So Westcott in 2013 expand on this approach, helping management develop plans to implement ISO 9004 and provides a case studies of successful implementations. So if you want to explore this further, this topic uh, own advice is straightforward. So the best place to start is with the ISO 9004 standard itself. Because ISO 9001 and ISO 9004 are structurally compatible by design, there are three practical paths on an organization can follow, and it's worth understanding all three because they genuinely fit different starting positions. Path A, you have no present wish to be certified to ISO 9001 requirements, but you want to install a powerful QMS right now with the option to go for ISO 9001 certification later. So you build your present quality system on the guidelines of ISO 9004. So the genuinely reassuring part of this path, the actions you take to follow the ISO 9004 guidelines will not cause you trouble if you later decide to seek 9001 certification. You're not building something you'll have to tear down later. Path B is you're presently certified to ISO 9001, but you want to upgrade to a more powerful system that leads an actual performance improvement. So not just a compliance. Without making any changes to your present QMS, you can start to selectively apply the ISO 9004 guidelines on top of it. Path C is you're not certified, but you want to become certified, and you also want to put quality improvement procedures in the place that are not required for the registrations. You can work with ISO 9001 and ISO 9004 simultaneously, devoting to each the resources you deem appropriate to achieving your goals. The underlying message across all these three paths, the ISO 9001, ISO 9004, are not competing choices you have to pick between. So they are designed to work together in whatever combination and sequences actually fits where your organization is starting from. Beyond the core of the ISO 9000 family, several industry-specific standards exist that they may have a real impact on the organization quality management system. The automobile, the telecommunications, the biomedical industries have all created industry-specific standards that emulate ISO 9001, but impose additional, sector-specific requirements on top of it. The American automobile industry took the lead in creating its own industry with QS 9000. That standard was replaced by ISO/TS 16949 2009. And then in October 2016, the International Automotive Task Force or IATF revised the standard as, IATF 16949 2016. It's worth being precise here because IATF 16949 2016 is not a standard, it's not standalone quality management, it is intended to be used in conjunction with the ISO 9001 2015 to define the full QMS requirements for automotive-related products. The IATF 16949 2016 tire is now mandatory for many original equipment manufacturers or OEMs, which makes it generally high stakes for suppliers in that industry. The telecommunication quality standard is the TL 9000, and the biomedical quality standard is ISO 13485 2016. Both, like the automobile standard, are laid on top of ISO 9001 foundation rather than replacing it. If you want to actually obtain these three standards or related pertinent publication, this topic points to ASQ Quality Press, so reachable by by their phone and through their website. So commentary and assistance, all three on the industry can be also found in their in the standard number by their search engine. And for the broader view of quality standards, and this chapter recommends the Bollinger, Johnson, and Lucas 2020 2012. Let's turn this different approach to quality recognition. The Malcolm Baldrige National Award, or the MBNQA. Unlike the ISO standards we spent this whole video, the MBNQA emphasizes results rather than procedures or requirements, a meaningful different philosophy, where ISO 9000 asks, like, did you follow the document process? Baldrige asks, like, what results did you actually achieve? So Congress established this award in 1987 specifically to recognize the U.S. organization for their achievements in quality and business performance and to raise awareness about the importance of quality and performance excellence as a genuine competitive edge. The award is in honor of Malcolm Baldrige, who was the serving Secretary of the Commerce at the time of his death in 1987. The award is not given for a specific products or services. It's an organizational recognition. Awards may be given annually across several categories: manufacturing, service, small business, education, healthcare, nonprofit, and government. While the Baldrige Award itself and its recipients make up the very visible centerpiece of the U.S. quality movement, a broader national quality program that has evolved and its criteria over time. A report titled Building on Baldrige American Quality for 21st Century by the Private Council of the Competitiveness put it directly, and the quote is worth reading exactly as written. More than any other program, the Baldrige Quality Award is responsible for making the quality a national priority in disseminating the best practices across the United States. The U.S. Commerce Department National Institute of Standards and Technology, or the NIST, manages the MBNQA program in close cooperation with the private sector. Since its inception, the MBNQA has received over 1,600 applications and it's of as of 2015. So over 100 organizations from a wide variety of industries have received this award, with 7 organizations winning it twice. So the MBNQA is awarded according to its 7 specific criteria for performance excellence, and these are worth knowing in full, since they represent in genuinely differently holistic way of evaluating organization quality compared to a compliance checklist. One, leadership examines how senior executives guide the organization and how the organization addresses its responsibilities to the public and practices good citizenships. So notice public responsibility and citizenship are explicitly part of the leadership criteria, so not a separate add-on. Two is their strategic planning. It examines how the organization's strategic direction and how it determines key action plans. directly echoing our earlier strategic planning material. Three is the customer and market focus. It examines how the organization determines the requirements and expectation of customer and markets, and how it builds and maintains strong, lasting relationship with them. Four is the measurement analysis. Is the measurement analysis and knowledge management. It examines the management, effective use and analysis of data and information to support key organizational process and the organization's own performance management system. Five is the human resource focus. It examines how the organization enables its workforce to develop its full potential and how that workforce is aligned with the organization objectives. Six is the process management, examines aspects of how the key production and delivery process and how supporting process are designed, managed, and improved. And seven is the business and organization performance results. It examines the organization's actual performance and improvement across its key business areas. Customer satisfaction, financial and marketplace performance, human resources and supplier and partner performance, and operational performance. So this category also specifically examines how the organization performs relative to its competitors, which is generally distinct from anything in the ISO framework. ISO never asks how you stack up against competitors, but only whether you meet the standards on requirement. For anyone who wants to pursue this award, you can just study the criteria in more depth for the information from the website. Okay, so let's bring it together from these closing points. So first is the international standard exists specifically to resolve conflicts between incompatible national standards. That's the entire historical reason for ISO exists. Without it, companies would be stuck in either duplicating effort across markets or forfeiting business in some countries entirely. Second, within the ISO 9000 family, remember the specific role each document plays. ISO 9000 is vocabulary. ISO 9001 is the requirements and only one you can actually be certified against. And ISO 9004 is the improvement guidance that is not required, but it is designed to work alongside 9001. Third is the 10 clause high level structure adopted in 2015 edition makes the ISO 9001 far easy to unify with other management system standards. So that shared structure is genuinely practical benefit for any organization juggling multiple certification at once. Fourth is the ISO 9001 and ISO 9004 are compatible by design and not competing options. Whichever of path A, B, or C matches your organization's starting point, you can use both standards together rather than having to choose one or over the other. And fifth, the Malcolm Baldrige National Equality Award, it judges results across the seven generally holistic criteria: the leadership, the strategy, the customer focus, the knowledge, management, the workforce, the process management, and the actual business resulting, including the competitive standing. So that's the meaningful different philosophy for ISO compliance-based model. And knowing both approaches gives you a generally complete picture how the quality gets recognized and rewarded, both internationally and within the United States specifically. So I hope you enjoy this video and give you more value and learn about this topic. I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.